Hey everybody, it is John Carlos, and I am back with,
Eddie!
and we are going to talk Scream sequels. When we last left off, you were teasing that Scream, besides being called Scary Movie, could also be called something else.
It occurred to me with the second movie, them moving into this movie called Stab. Now, the word stab is not a great title per se. You hear yeah, I'm gonna go see Stab tonight. At the same time, I was thinking contextually, if you know what you're getting into, Stab is more resonant for me with the franchise than Scream. Because the focus for me when the kills are kind of their most impactful is usually seeing the knife and watching it go into somebody and being afraid of the knife, the impact, rather than somebody screaming in response to anything. There are scream responses in these movies. They're not the most, I don't think they're ever the most memorable thing, with the exception of Drew Barrymore screaming in the first movie at the face. That's
Absolutely
about it.
not. You are right. The scream does not really matter in these movies, but the stabbing is when you feel the most. I would agree.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to Scream 2. Yes.
Like as a title, you said it may not hold that much, but to me, titles. There's a lot of titles that don't really hold them, but the things that we bring to them once they're cemented do. Before the movie existed, if you just heard a movie called Scream,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't sound great either.
No, I think what sold that were also the images associated with. So who knows if there had been a Stab poster?
There's more to it. I mean, Empire Strikes Back is one of my favorite movies of all time, but on paper, The Empire Strikes Back sounds like a terrible title.
Right.
And Attack of the Clones is a terrible title.
That is a terrible title, and that suits it because it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, I will never. Side note: this has nothing to do with Scream 2 or 3 or anything, but I will never forget. There's video footage of there's a red carpet somewhere, and Ewan McGregor, because they go into production. It's just episode 2, and they announced the title, and they asked Ewan McGregor "Oh, what do you think of the title for Star Wars? What do you think of Attack of the Clones?" He's like, "What? The new Star Wars movie is called Attack of the Clones." He's like, "Attack of the Clones?" He's like, "That sounds terrible. That's a terrible title." And I'm like, "It is a terrible title."
Is he Swedish? Is Ewan McGregor Swedish now?
I am not. I am not a good accent man. I can do it's shite being Scottish. Well, those are fucking roll. Can't even find a decent colony be colonized by.
I'm so glad we have that on camera now. I can watch that at the top of our Scream sequels discussion.
My last name is McMaster. I am of Scottish descent. There is a question and all that, and I still can't. Yeah.
Let's talk about the movie.
Let's talk about Scream 2. Scream 2. You go because.
Okay.
Because I love.
I mean,
okay. You don't love it the way I love it. So
I don't love it the way you love it, but I do love things about it, and that's kind of true about all these sequels. With this one, I feel like we open with the meta right away with Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett Smith discussing. Well, she wasn't Smith yet. I think she was just Jada Pinkett.
She was
discussing Black people in horror. In a very 90s way, it's touched upon. I actually counted and saw there were only 4 Black people in this movie, but I think that's more than any of the other movies.
Yes.
And every one of them either references their race themselves or has it referenced by somebody else. So I thought, I'd be curious to hear what Kevin Williamson thought he was doing then and what he thinks he was doing then now, if that makes sense. Because I mean, it's very 90s. It's commented on. It's inclusive in a way, and yet at the same time, it's written by a white guy. So there's that. But I gotta say, even though I don't find the opening scene anywhere near as scary as what is going to be as scary on par with Drew Barrymore's kill, but I do think Jada Pinkett's death performance.
Oh.
Because I was just kind of like, oh my God, she's literally she's not just bleeding, like you can see the veins in her head like on a Matthew Lillard level.
Yeah.
Like she is dying and she is in agony. People are
Oh,
laughing and cheering around her. You feel the irony of the death. The thing is, the I feel the sense of humor and I feel the meta of the story. I just don't feel the fear that I did with the first movie.
I
So
don't
right
feel
off the bat, I'm like, okay, we're in something else.
I don't feel as much, yeah, not at all, but there are little beats that really stick with me. One,
Mm-hmm.
also, just when speaking of her death, I'm always impressed when people, uh, or I'm always disappointed when people get shot. It doesn't seem to really phase them instead of fucking ow. And
Yeah. Or
she,
stabbed.
it's like her third stab where he just like really comes up behind her and like her eyeballs bulge. I feel that stab, and I don't feel that from a lot of
Mm-hmm.
actors where that's my response, but I
Yeah.
feel her stabs. I I I wouldn't say it caused a phobia, but here's how you know it kind of worked for me is
Okay.
I there's especially you're not your multiplexes, but when you used to go to the movie theater, they used to make movie theaters that only had like one or two screens
Yeah.
before you started having the 30 screen theaters, and you would
Yeah.
go in and there would be like one or two urinals and like two or three stalls, especially if they were built in the 70s and they had that tile and the lighting was dark. And anyway, like for a little bit after this movie, I didn't like going to the bathroom at movie theaters. Like I'm not sure, I'm not joking. There's something about like a little room that's quiet and separated from where everyone else is, and it isolates you. And in that same way that, like in theory, one of the reasons why horror movies lean so much on girls in the shower being naked is because when you're naked, you are at your most vulnerable. You have no protection. You have no pockets. You have nothing.
Mhm.
In that same sense, you go to the bathroom like your pants are around your ankles or your dick's out. Like you are as vulnerable as a guy can get, while still being like a guy and having all the advantages of fucking being a guy. But yeah, there's something about that. Even now, when I watch that bathroom stall scene, um, and also much like how the first one. Uh, I'm just gonna skip to the end really quick. One of the two killers is Billy Loomis's mom. There's a
Mhm.
lot of like little mom nuggets throughout the movie. And it
Mm.
starts in the first scene where he's listening to the next person in the stall, and they're doing this weird little baby voice, and it's like, but every sentence ends with "mommy." Like, no, mommy, I'm sorry, mommy, mommy, and it's creepy as all hell. Um, but even from the get go, like it's in the first scene, like "mommy, mommy, mommy." But yeah,
Uh-huh.
no, it's a good kill, and there's a lot of good. I still think I think it's like a bang up or whatever you want to call it for an opening scene. Is it as scary as the first one? No, but is
Mm.
it clever and engaging and witty and has a lot going for it? And just the what the scene is at the movie theater and introducing Stab, I think it's a great opening scene.
The
I think
fact that,
the four
yeah.
Scream movies, and then the fourth one has something fun. And to me, three is the only one that has just a shit show an opening scene.
Well,
But
this
this
was another thing that made me wonder how many
sweet.
franchises have done this. How many franchises have made a movie about what happened in the previous movie and had people go see it, and not just see it, but like celebrate it. And then
Yeah.
you get to recreate moments that are iconic that everybody gets. So when you reference them, you're not paying homage and you're not revisiting tropes. You're literally
Yep.
showing a bastardized version, a Hollywoodized version of what probably Wes Craven's worst nightmare about that scene would have been.
Well, one of the things that's so great about the idea of Stab,
Mm-hmm.
well, there's several good ideas. One is if you're making a first movie and now a second movie and a whole series where being aware of the moviness of your movie
Mm-hmm.
and the idea of cinema in general and its existence in the reality, its effect on certain characters and their choices. What a great way to then include the events of the first movie as cinema
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to include in your franchise is great. But also, one of the things that I think was actually pretty clever is that if your sequels now for this franchise, uniquely to this franchise, is a different killer, and the core cast stays the same, But if the killer is different, you still have a sense. You still have a sense of continuity to their MO,
Mhm.
um, to how they basically operate. And it's not just the continuity of the costume, because that
Mhm.
is the through line, but also the act of, what's your favorite scary movie? I'm going to sneak up and stab you. Uh, what allows that continuity, even though it's a different character, is that
Mhm.
they've all seen Stab.
Right.
Like, it allows the events of the first movie to inform your next several villains. So there
Right.
is the same villain, even though they're not the same. And that's fucking
Mhm.
really smart.
Yeah, that I
So it's not
agree.
just Steve, because in theory, Steve could put on a hockey costume with a brown paper bag, and here's my reasons, and
Uh-huh.
but the fact that they're following in the same footsteps, these were the first footsteps that allow for that to happen.
This copycat killer thing, but
Yeah,
also I like the impact. Like I said, I like the impact of Jada's death. I also like there's one extra there. It's the girl who's literally just, I think she just cups her mouth and it's just like, oh my god, like this is. She's not looking like, oh my god, I'm watching somebody die, but she's looking like, oh my god, is this shit real? Because if the shit's real, then these people are crossing a line. There's like a whole story in that one extra, and I like that. But we get to use the word core about group, but I also really respond to the core of this movie. Because once we get the reintroductions of the people we already know, I don't know of a movie that reintroduces this many characters, um, with Gail, with Dewey, with Sydney, and with Randy,
Randy.
where, thank you, not Jamie, and where we know them, and it's just kind of like, well, here's where they are. Like Gail's back to being Gail. She's striding past something. She's impenetrable. She's just walking on the phone. She's got the thing, but now she's the lens is turned, and now people are asking her questions. So she's no longer just pursuing a story. People actually associate her with it. So they're trying to make her the subject of it, and she's just sees the story. That and then I think the first one we get reintroduced to is Sydney. Sydney is getting prank called by her peers, and she's moved out of being a victim at this particular point in her life. She's got caller ID. She knows the code that they're violating, so she can tell them.
And
And she's yeah.
and just for those of you out here who are a little bit younger, you used to just not know who was calling you.
Yeah.
Then there was a new device called caller ID, and it was fancy. And then the caller ID was built into your phones, and then eventually,
Yeah.
but I mean, talk about something
Inter
that
yeah.
got such a laugh from the audience, and I don't think that would land now.
Mm.
She's actually she because not everyone had caller ID.
Yeah.
She even had it and could do that to him.
It's funny that you bring that up because I literally was watching an episode of Friends, I think a day ago, where there was something with Monica and the phone, and Monica's Courtney Cox, and she was like, "Oh my god!" She calls somebody, she hangs up, and then they call back. She's like, "Oh my god, he must have that caller ID thing, like it was a
Yep.
thing." So Courtney Cox, caller ID, it's a whole full circle. We're on exactly the path we're supposed to be on, John Carlos. But so she gets introduced, and even when she reconnects later, she's talking about everything she's got going in her college life. How she's pursuing drama, and she's got a new pocket of friends, and she's even seeing somebody new, and she just seems to kind of like be trying, in a way she doesn't in the other sequels, trying to kind of like recapture a sense of normalcy. And while that's not my favorite Sydney to watch, I'm kind of, because I also know the movie that's waiting for her. I'm just kind of like, okay, good, but she's proactive. She's like, okay, a lot of shit happened to me, but it's over now, and I'm just trying to put my life back together, and it's very positive, and I don't doubt it. And then the same thing with seeing Randy just talking movies with a room full of Randys in cinema studies. I mean, I love that scene. I fucking love that scene. And then, and I can't really even. And then just watching him track a lot of watching people walk together, because like he starts walking with Sydney while she's telling him about stuff, and he's speaking an English accent, and I'm just like, I'm digging this movie, and I don't know if it's just because it feels like it's just hit the ground running. Like these people, here they are now, and now the movie.
And
And
it
then,
doesn't
yeah.
feel like a stretch how they're all together again. Like, I believe her and Randy went to college together. I
Yes.
completely believe that Gail would cover this story, and I completely believe that Dewey would see what happened and hop on a plane and go check on her.
I also
None
love
of
the
it
fact
feels
that
like a stretch.
the establishing shot of Dewey, the only one. Everybody's been walking like with purpose.
And
He's
he's
just kind
standing
of
around.
lost. He's lost, like looking around a campus, out of his element completely. And not like he was in his element in Woodsboro, but he had this kind of bravado, and it's gone. It's just like, where's Sydney? Maybe I should ask somebody. And then luckily there she is, and they talk.
I mean, I don't know how much of a bravado he had. I mean, some of it is, I always thought it was cute. He's supposed to be 25 in Scream 1.
Yeah.
It's a bit posturing to me.
Uh-huh.
And he gets knocked off his pedestal, not pedestal, but he gets knocked down when Tatum's like, "Come on, Dewey," you know, like,
Yeah.
you know what
Mom, yeah.
you respect the badge, like.
But even when he talks to Gail, he's just kind of like, well, my boyish good looks haven't been, you know what I mean? he has no problem kind of playing a role himself.
I also feel like that version of him, though, is the version that's read the book, who's been stabbed, who's been through some shit, who maybe read too much into the fact that, like, yeah, there's this girl on TV that I thought was cute, but we had this walk, and we had this moment, and we kissed, and then she wrote this fucking book about me?
Yeah. Oh, God.
All of his scenes with her, I always kind of presumed the way like a fucking young male did, where it's like, oh, it's because he likes her and she's the girl, he's the boy. But only now do I really realize how much of what he's playing is coming from what you fucking wrote about me.
Uh-huh.
Like the broken heart isn't just like, oh, we kissed and then you left. The broken heart is like, you called me Barney Fife.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, though, because the thing is, the one who I actually was drawn to the most as far as the core of this film that I'm discussing, as somebody who I mean, there's four, I guess, including Randy. As protagonists, because we don't know what's going to happen to him first time watching this movie. But the one who I kind of latched onto the most this time around with the viewing, and I think I've done it before, but I noticed it the first time, was Gail. Because here she starts off, and it's kind of like she hits the ground running. Like we think it's the same Gail from like the last one. She's just as opportunistic. She's just as tactless because she full on brings Cotton Weary as a surprise to Sydney and has them introduced. She doesn't prompt, and he thinks that Sydney knew about this ahead of time. She promised him a big story, and she just wanted her moment. And I'm like, oh my God, Gail, I thought you. Well, no, I didn't think you learned, but I kind of hoped you would because you seem semi-decent by the end of the movie, and even Sydney thinks so, when she's just like, I like that ending, you know? So we're back to her getting smacked. This time it's backhanded, and it's a slap, which I always think is more like, you little bitch.
I will admit, though, that based on where, sure, she had some signs of potential that evening.
Yes.
At the end of Scream 1. But when the opportunity comes for like another book deal and a better TV job, like I completely believe her going down that rabbit hole and just
right
to it.
Also, number one, I love the streaks. I think that's my favorite look for Gail out of all the movies. It's the red streaks. Yeah. And I love the fact that he even makes fun of them, and she's like, oh, nice, or whatever. But and then the interaction with Dewey, you see him, being defensive and justifiably so. And her, kind of apologizing and really just kind of like thinking he's adorable and kind of reminding herself like, oh my God, he is so cute. I actually had a lot of fun with this guy. And then trying to be a reporter, failing. And then like the next time we see kind of a shift in her is after a few of the kills. And it might be Randy's. Or is it? I don't remember exactly when in the movie it is, but something happens like where like, okay, this is serious now. This isn't a time to be opportunistic. And Dewey even kind of like pushes that in her face, like, yeah, you're probably really, really happy this is going on. And she's like, no, I'm not happy. I feel bad. I feel really bad. And he's like, well, you gonna go chase the story? And she's like, I don't care about the story. I just want to get this fucker. And I'm like, that's the Gail I want, and you're giving me the Gail I want, but I still don't feel like I'm just like, like you did all the work to get her to me. So then finally, after they've already had their fight, and they were being filmed, and they're watching themselves fight, and they're laughing about it in that little film studio. I'm laughing too. They're playing the little Dewey theme, which I didn't bring up for the first movie, but it's from the first movie. I love the little Dewey theme. And I love the fact that I am so uncomfortable usually when I have to watch real couples engage in stuff. Like back in the day when Ryan Phillippe and Reese Witherspoon during Cruel Intentions had to get kind of hot and heavy. I was so uncomfortable. There are other cases where I'm watching real couples be intimate and I'm just kind of like, I feel like this is gross. I shouldn't be seeing this. But for some reason, I don't know if it's because it's a non-invasive angle. It's probably all of it. And also because of the fact that they're both like kids. They're both smiling. They're like, just kind of like getting on a table together and like, oh my God. It feels real to the point where then when they stop and the tone shifts, this is my favorite sequence in the whole movie is when they start seeing the footage of the kills and realizing somebody's making their own movie. I love that that's the gimmick for this too, that this time he's making the movie. But because there's little sidebar. There's a little thing that's introduced earlier that is completely abandoned, and that's not the last time this happens, where they find out that the killer's killing people, repeating the order that they die, like with names that replicate like the actual deaths. Right. As soon as they bring that up, it goes away. Figures in again. Right. And so I like that essentially they start to see footage of the people who got killed right before they got killed, and then they're looped in. That's a great sense of foreboding building in, putting into effect. And then the fact that they have the struggle that they do in that room, and then going into the sound booth.
Wait, hang on. I just want to say, just because that bothered me the first time I saw it, but over time I just chalked it up to the fact that if the killer's creating a sequel, like giving you what you know and upping the ante, this is giving you what you know, and now he's upping the ante. Like that's follow through with it all the way.
That may justify it. I'll have to rewatch it with
that's the work
lens.
I did.
But okay, cool. There you go. But what I love, and I feel like I have to do no work at all. Again, I'm right with Gail the same way I was with Casey in the first scene, and even with Sydney at the climax of the first one. Watching Gail, the way Courtney Cox executes it, and the way it's shot, just watching her move with this weird, just working with her senses, like with just like listening, sensing somebody's coming. Oh my God, you can see it at one point she's hiding alongside a wall, and she realizes, oh my God, he's right behind me, and okay, he's probably going to go around, so I need to like run over here. And it's so precarious. It's so tense. And then the fact that she gets into a room, and every little noise that she makes, I'm like, don't make that noise. And then the fact that Dewey comes in after her, and the fact that she can't hear him, and then the killer's ghost face is there. And she turns around, and he gets in the microphone, and she turns around just in time to see him, and to freak out because he's about to be stabbed. Then when he gets stabbed, and the blood just starts coming out of his mouth as he's running down the window, she's crying. I'm crying. I cry every time.
I feel feelings at that moment. As someone who didn't feel feelings for Scream 1 to a certain degree, but like I remember I latched on to Randy, and I thought Dewey was fun. But Scream 2, not quite Empire Strikes Back or Godfather 2, where it like elevates to the next thing, but like I felt more watching Scream 2. So that when Randy died and Dewey died, I remember I was in high school with my girlfriend at the time, and when Dewey got like stabbed, like I like clutched her arm, and I was like, oh fuck. Yeah. Like I felt things.
And again, we're back to, this isn't a kill that people are going to cheer for. Like, I mean, ironically, we're watching the first kill, the bastardized version of it. I keep doing that. The bastardized version gets applauded and cheered in a stab theater. But so I can almost forgive it because it's being put on a pedestal and being shown like well, this is what Hollywood does, if it goes into the wrong hands or something. But here's what we do in Scream. I feel like this entire sequence is that, because not only does it doesn't just end with the kill, and we don't only just like feel everything with the both of them, especially her, because she just got him back, and they were so happy and so excited, and they even walked into a movie cliche of starting to make love an attempt to kill her, and I didn't even think about it once because I had
too into
much reckless abandon as they did. And then the fact that it's followed up after the kill, she's sliding down the glass with him and just with him and then looks up and rises, and he starts trying to break, I don't think it's glass, but the window, trying to break the window. And she's just there, flinching and screaming and telling him to go away. And then he gets to the door and she pushes the thing in front and he can't get in. He's swinging and she's just like, oh my God. And then he leaves. And this is the thing that kills me the most. This is the thing that I feel the most, that not enough horror movies figure in the aftermath. Like, okay, he's left, or has he? And she just kind of sits there and balls up and just waits with this look that we hadn't seen on Gale before then. And she's going to wait it out and just be like, he couldn't possibly be out there now. I'm not leaving until it is unthinkable. And she doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not
like
just like in that scene. Yeah. To the point where we see her out and we're like, good for you, Gale. You waited it out, because that's what I would have done.
I'm glad you mentioned him trying to break the glass, because it's the only time in the movie where I really get pulled out for a second. And it's after such an emotional moment. But he throws like the stool at the thing, and she goes, nah, and then he like just throws his body into it, which is, and she goes, no, and I'm like, well, we already know. She screams as if like he got, I mean, I know you're not being logical or rational, but it just always makes me laugh when she screams, when he just like throws his body into the glass and falls over.
Oh, I'm right there with her. I'm
no, it's the only part I break at.
Oh, okay. No, see,
but
go on.
I'm glad you brought up Gale, because first of all, she delivers exactly what she needs to deliver in the first movie perfectly as that character.
Yes.
No complaints at all. But what I like about 2 is 2 gives her more to go through.
Yeah.
We take that character and now we do shit to it.
Yeah.
And especially with these first 2, and even the third one. I only recently watched Friends for the first time, like I think 2008, like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And it's interesting because she was filming these while Friends was still a thing. There is no trace of Monica-isms.
No.
And there is no Gale in, like, there's especially because Monica at the beginning of Friends is not who Monica becomes. That's a character that becomes something that becomes, I'm more neurotic and I like to clean things and shit. But there is
I'm competitive.
Yes, and that sweetness, there's something in her smile, in her eyes, in her posture that is not there with Gale. She shows up to fucking work in these movies to create a wholly unique character. There is, she's talking to the cameraman, and she's like, "Hey, you might want to check your conscience at the fucking door, sweetie, because like we got shit to," and like, and it's 100% true, and it's 100% there, and it's 100% not what she's ever done in Cocoon or Masters of the Universe or in any of these other performances she's given on Friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I watched this, much like for all of these actually, this was the first time I really sunk into Sydney. I'll get to her in a moment, but I completely 100% agree with you on this one as far as where she starts. Gale. But her complete commitment to like, this is the story I'm chasing. These are my ambitions. And then I'm glad you brought up that scene because it's after Randy dies.
Okay.
And I like that she admits like, I feel bad. And I don't often admit that because it's like a sign of weakness, but
I never feel bad about anything. Yeah.
That is a great turning point scene. And it's played really well. Like I pretty much just repeat everything you said, but I'm just telling you, like, I completely agree with you.
Nice.
But besides that, I am so here for fucking Sydney in this movie, especially in a way that I never was before, because they put her through. Pretty much, I'm into it because of what she brings to it, like what Nev Campbell. It's interesting that the second that we find out about what's going on with the first 2 killings, and the reporters coming to the school. That's one thing. And it is a thing. But it's when they go to the frat party that night, and that's when the killer shows up for her. And when her boyfriend goes into the house, and then him and Dewey come in. Well, Dewey comes in. He went that way and his arm's bleeding. And the music's playing, and it's just that there's this fucking look on her face, and there's no dialogue, but it's all just ache and like, oh shit. Now it's real. Now it's happening. Now I'm scared. Now I'm worried. Oh, what the fuck am I gonna do? And the guilt, it's all fucking here. And she showed up and earned her fucking paycheck on this movie, as far as I'm concerned. And also, as someone like much like in the last movie, I'm always fascinated now when I watch movies when people die in a movie, and how like I feel like 80% of the time like it's not phasing the characters. Maybe it's not written to, or the actors aren't doing it, but like someone died, and we'll kind of talk about it, and the story will keep going. And I'm like, that's not really how things work. And everything she's carrying with her when they're in the police station after Randy's dead, I'm like, that's how you would probably look and feel if your friend was just stabbed. And
she even talks about, I have to call his mom. And Dewey's like, I already made that call. And I'm just like, see, we're coming to this is what you would think of in crisis, like when you're losing your friends. And especially, you've already been through this. You thought it was over.
Yeah. That's the whole thing is, one, she thought it was over, and the fact that it's coming for her friends now again. Yeah. But the first time she tries to like get away from her boyfriend, and then he follows it up with, I love you, and she sticks with him. But when she's having that rehearsal and he comes and visits her, again, I'm just gonna say everything she plays is like 110% perfect as far as the guilt and the worry. And I think the overall her vibe over the course of this movie is, she even says there's dialogue about like, I need to be like, I need you to go away. I can't have my friends get hurt. Like, I need to be alone. I need to be alone. Yeah. Which is one of the few only good things I like about Scream 3 is Scream 3 pays that off. Yeah. By starting the movie with her being alone. Yeah. But everything that's going through her head about this is my fault. And also it's the thing I like about Scream 4 is the kids refer to her as the angel of death. And that's what's literally happening in this movie is she is realizing I am this angel of death. Right. And yet, or at least that people see me this way, they're going to keep coming for me. Right. Like, she doesn't, if she blames herself, she doesn't wallow in it. She's just wants to kind of rectify the situation, make things right, get this fucker also. Like there's very much, that's when the core group of getting this fucker like that's where it really, the wheels really seem to have formed. And it's just kind of like, yes, that's what this franchise is. It's about figuring out who the fuck it is and stopping them. As well as she plays the angst and the tragedy of everything that's befalling her over the 3/4 of this movie, she completely earns to me the third act. Okay, yeah, I would agree with that. Because when you're in Scream 1, she's still a teenager. Yeah, and I don't think she just becomes some badass or anything like that. But in this movie, by the time she escapes Mrs. Loomis enough to get to the wings, I am completely there for her when she grabs the axe and starts hacking the fucking ropes. And she's making these very proactive choices. Like, she's not quite Linda Hamilton, which is funny because they even mentioned you can make Linda Hamilton vibe, but she is more assured. She has been pushed into like this corner where she's now like swinging back. And I'm like, this is my favorite Sydney movie. Wow. Okay. I really like, I get a lot out of Sydney in this one. It's mostly just because her performance is so good. That's awesome. Yeah, and then Monica's. Yeah, I don't know. I wrote down Monica. I keep looking at it. Gail. One little tiny thing that I wanted to mention when we were talking about the opening scene that I feel bad about. Okay. It's a little bummer for me. Okay, so the fun thing, at least what felt fun at the '90s, was that not only are we getting some representation,
Mhm.
but the fact that we're watching her watch Stab and in effect watch Scream, and we're getting the not complacent white viewer, or we're getting the bitch
Mhm.
hang up the phone and star 69 his ass.
Right.
In 2020, I can't tell how, from a white writer, is this a little bad? Like, is this black writing?
Neither can I, but it enters my
Right.
brain.
But I will say in the 90s, it felt like a fresh new reaction to something. And I know people who
Mhm.
did react that way. To see it on screen was fun. What
That
gets
was yes.
but what gets me though, and what breaks my heart about that scene, really, I'm like legitimately bums me out. It's the littlest thing, but sometimes that's all it takes. So they're in line earlier, and and then she wants to go see the new Sandra Bullock movie, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
she's Miss fucking ethnicity," and she's like, "Yeah, but at least it's not Stab."
Yeah.
When when he when they're sitting together, and he's like, "All right, let's go see fucking Sandra Bullock." She's like, "No, it already started. We can do this." And I'm like, "Oh, like she's gonna stay. That's nice." What fucking gets me is when the killer comes in and sits next to her, and she's chosen to like be with him on this journey. She's like, "Oh, you came back just in time. Looks like she's about to get it." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
she's like having fun with him, and it's not even him anymore." But like she's like going past her comfort zone. She's compromising the way couples have to compromise. Like, fuck. She didn't go down. She didn't die going, "I don't want to fucking see this movie."
No, right.
Look like
She
she's about
was
to
she
get
was
it.
being a
You want some?
sweetie.
You want some popcorn?
She rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck. That
That's true. I never thought of it like that.
really
That's
gets me,
really
man.
sad.
It is. I like this movie a lot. It makes
I
me
know you
feel
do.
things.
I know. It always has too. You have always been a champion of this movie.
I
And
have.
I'm coming around. I'm the things that I particularly love. Like the thing is there are no full-on stinkers in this franchise for me.
There is for me.
Um I know there are. We're going to get there. But before we do, let's talk about I already illustrated how much I love my favorite sequence and how like and made a lot of great comments about what's great about Scream 2. This is where the wheels start to come off for me.
Is it the ending? Like the whole climax?
Okay, Ola Fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. I always imagine that Kevin Smith story whenever I hear his fucking name.
Yes. No, and especially with this one because I mean it's okay. I mean it's I'm going to try not to be personal, but I can't not call him Ola Fantastic. If you don't understand it, just look on YouTube. The clip is
There
just
is
look
a
up
clip on
Timothy
YouTube.
Oliphant, Kevin Smith. You'll probably see Kevin Smith telling the story. But what makes me believe it is things like this movie. Because I know there are a lot of people who actually do, especially champions of this movie, who really, really like him. He is like illustrative to me. There are a lot of terms, like we talked during the Chucky breakdown about like camp and what I feel the true definition of camp is, at least how it resonates with me. This is like a term that gets used all the time, even by Kevin Smith, and sometimes I feel that it's misused by him. It's chewing the scenery. Sometimes I feel like when people are being broad or theatrical, people might describe the Matthew Lillard performance at the climax of the first Scream movie, him chewing the scenery. I don't believe so at all because he is so incredibly invested. Timothy Oliphant for me is like exhibit A of chewing the scenery because it's large and I feel disconnected. I feel he's disconnected from what he's doing because it's a lot of I'm gonna look through the tops of my eyes and talk about it. It's just gonna be our little secret. I wrote down like all of his lines that I'm just not all of them, but just like a few.
You
Just
used
like
the
his
exact
fucking
word I was thinking, which was disconnected. So
yes. Oh, and even now I got one surprise cameo just for you. And I'm like, you're putting on a voice. You're acting
you've
like
got
I'm
a
a
kind of little
creepy.
Glenn Hamilton thing going for you. No, it's great. I like it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
you're performing.
the acting, the performance. This is what was so great about Billy and Stu, and why I love rewatching that movie. The performance is supposed to be in the ahead, and I thought he showed up. Ola Fantastic showed up for his performance in everything preceding the climax. But once it's revealed who he is, the performance just gets laid on even thicker. And I guess you could argue he's a different person. People manifest their illnesses in different ways, but I don't believe it. I feel like I'm watching somebody try to be spooky, try to be scary, and there's no threat whatsoever. I am not scared of Olaf Fantastic.
It's one of the few elements that hasn't, as I've gotten older, I was fine with it when I was 17. But also there was a lot of stuff in the 90s where people were performing like very exaggerated, sarcastic characters that weren't grounded in any kind of reality. They could just say, like, I'm a zany, crazy person because I'm crazy. I'm, like, you saw that a fucking lot.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I was
Rebecca Gay Hart in Urban Legends comes to mind. Go on.
Yeah. Fun side note,
love her now.
Completely random.
Yeah.
Do you watch Batwoman?
No, I have not begun.
There's a character on it. Her name's Alice. She's a big bad, and she is crazy, and she's doing that. But I don't know if it's because I haven't seen it, but she's also doing like the best version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm like, God, she's so 90s, but like in a really good way. Like, this is what crazy people sound like when they're aware of how crazy they are, and they say things, and they pop their eyes, and they, and they perform. But like, I believe it, and like, she's the best version of it in 2020 or 2019, and he's like one of the prime examples of why it's not so great back in 1990.
Oh, there are tons of examples. I think about like Buffy, particular season, the big bad. If you're a Buffy fan, you know exactly who I'm talking about, because all the other big bads were splendid actors, executed incredibly. And on the page, this character could have been great. And the actress, I don't want to even name her because she does a lot of charity work and she's really, really super sweet. But no, she showed up to work.
Don't you hate that?
She didn't show up to work, but she showed up to work. I mean, she showed up.
Me and BJ are about to do. We're going to do a Roger Moore video for the James Bond movie.
Yes, yeah.
He's really good when it comes to charity and animal rights, and I love that about him. But his Bond. But he likes animals a lot.
Yeah. So Ola Fantastic doesn't do it for me. Oh, because also even just like when we reveal who he's been conspiring with this whole time, because you couldn't do it by myself, he's like, mother, didn't see that coming, did ya? I mean, he's still like, ooh, I'm twitchy and I'm weird, and it's like,
that's one of the few lines that bugs me, but I almost buy it just because, like, that's a fanboy excited. That is a, especially if you're hip to stab and real life. Like, I get why he's so excited at that moment.
But let me put it this way: I'm glad he gets eliminated very so soon.
Satisfying
after that. I'm just kind of like, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, it is so earned.
Thanks for justifying it in the script, Kevin Williamson, but I didn't even need that. I actually might have respected Billy's mom more. She would have just been like, oh, thank God that's over. Okay,
but she does kind of, dismiss, like, his whole fucking...
Oh, yeah. But I mean, even more of a dismissal, I would have been fine
even
with.
More so? Well, I think when you're writing that script, you don't know that's the performance you're going to get. So
sure. And this is the side of this is the other thing. I have a very small qualm because I love Laurie Metcalf. Problem is, I knew Laurie Metcalf very, very well, not as an actress, but just because I'd seen her perform hours and hours and hours as Aunt Jackie in Roseanne. If you had never seen Roseanne before and you'd never seen Laurie Metcalf, or if you only knew her from her Steppenwolf, days and everything like that, this might have just been a tour de force. And it is. She is giving some serious Betsy Palmer. This is not a drag on Laurie Metcalf. The only thing is, anytime she starts to kind of scream, ironically enough, I hear Jackie. Because Jackie used to flip out a lot on Roseanne. And I'm just like, oh, Aunt Jackie. And it even happens at a moment when, the moment where it happens the most for me is when Cotton enters the equation, doesn't know what's going on. He's asking questions. She starts bartering with him and everything. And she screams, what's the line? She's like, she sent you to prison for a year, Cotton. And I'm like, that's Aunt Jackie.
And I was never a Roseanne guy. And even what little Roseanne I did see was not Aunt Jackie centric. So I didn't have that reference.
Yeah.
I just thought she was good. But like really good. And then years have gone by and I've seen a lot of her work. And
yeah. No, and it's again not her, it's my fault for being too exposed to her being manic for comedy's sake, because when she starts to kind of go in that vocal register, my body is conditioned to laugh, to go
Oh,
awesome, you know.
if
And
I have nitpicks about this movie, the ending for me, once the killers are revealed, it isn't as solid as some of the others. Only, and I really, first of all, I really like the staging of it. Partially it's just because I grew up in theater, so I like the idea of
mhm.
like, well, there's this little plank and it's been knocked down, so and the edge has these fucking little jagged things, so like jumping it, you're gonna miss and cut your leg.
Right.
I mean, I find it odd that they would limit the wings, but they bring down these two things so you can't, and the door's locked. So like your finale is like on a stage, and I just think that's kind of neat. But
Mhm.
between Alm Fan and even to a certain degree, her energy, even though it's coming from a more rooted place, it's still energy. There is something a little cartoony about the vibe that you're getting from the villains in a way that wasn't like Stu is a cocky, arrogant, trying to be funny kind of teenager.
Mhm. But every one of those lines lands for me from
Yeah,
Stu.
the
Yeah.
ending of this one gets the performances are a little cartoony. I mean,
Mhm.
she is, even when she's like got Gale and she's talking, like there's a lot of like my
Oh,
eyes
and
are
I love the
popped.
Gale reveal too. I love that we're like red
Oh God.
herring,
When she
because
comes out and then there's
after going through everything you've gone, I just talked about with Gail, how much I empathize with her. I see her walk out, and the first time I saw it, I remember being like, "Oh, Gail,"
no,
like,
but what I
you
like
should be
about
ashamed of yourself.
what's great is
Wait, and
she
it,
looks sad.
yeah,
Um, so almost that as if
almost
she
guilty.
is being revealed, you would buy it as guilt. But
Yeah,
then you know that she's got a gun to her back and she's not being revealed, and you understand her face. But if you didn't know that for that first second, you know that is she fucking guilty about this? Oh, it's great, just
but I
great.
just can't believe I watched her come around as much as I did and believed it as wholeheartedly and even cried with her. And then I see her reveal just the first viewing. It only works the first viewing. But I still remember the first viewing being so convinced that it was Gail, and it was like a big question mark. Gail? Like this is just getting. And then when all she had to do was shake her head, and I was like, oh no, it's
Yeah,
Gail. Okay, I love you,
you
Gail.
know, a great beat in that ending too that I really like is so the premise is that Maureen was banging Billy's mom,
Mm-hmm.
and in the first movie, and she's the reason why my mom abandoned me.
But she wasn't banging Billy's mom, Billy's dad.
Billy's dad,
Maureen
sorry.
was.
Although that's so
I knew
then
what you meant, though. That's why I was going, yeah,
so
exactly.
Billy's mom leaves, and I always wondered how far in the past it was. And then Scream 4 establishes that it really was not that. It was only like a few. This wasn't like it wasn't like Billy was left at age 8. Like Billy was left when he was in high school.
Right.
Anyway, the only nitpick I have, not only, but because I've already nitpicked something, but if she's so upset about Billy dying,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't she like she because I'm not a parent, but I do know that for most people, aside from special circumstances, like when you have a kid, like your life is no longer yours. You're living your life for your child. And that's why so many people who, even when they maybe get divorced, they're still in their kids' lives. But to actually
Right.
like pack up and fucking leave your kid is some serious shit. So then for you to now be so upset that your son's dead when you weren't even fighting to stick around to be in his life those last several years, I had a
That's
bit of a hard time. However, again, you'd have to do the work sometimes. And one of the things that I justify to myself is maybe leaving was hard and selfish. Maybe it had to do with her pride. I don't know what. But once you find out that he's dead, now you're going into guilt. And now you're overworking things.
uh,
And you're playing into how much he really mattered to you because you weren't there for him at the end. And she is probably not mentally stable enough to begin with because it takes a little something to like look for a serial killer online and plot out this whole thing. So she wasn't all there.
yeah.
But you take someone like that and then you take away like their son and let them like spiral into abandoning them. And that's when
Like
you
now she's
justify,
unhinged. Yeah.
yes. And that's why you took away my boy. But what I
Mm-hmm.
love is that Sydney is exactly where I am, because I have a problem with all this monologuing she's doing. She's like, and you know
Yeah.
what it's like to raise someone and care for someone. She's like, and abandon someone. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
abandon someone. My only bummer is that like I didn't get to hear her response to that.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear a little more about that. Because
Well,
clearly
we got other just like, was
it
that a
triggers
disparaging
her.
word about my boy? And she's just
Right.
like, oh no, you did a
Like,
bang up job. You should be
right.
really proud of yourself.
All that sounds like something like her response would be to someone who really cared for her son and not fucking left him.
Yeah.
Completely left him. So yeah. But I like that triggers her though. Like there's clearly still more to it. But yeah. Also, one fun thing about including Mrs. Loomis that I really liked is that you, once you know that she's the killer, you ever do this where you look at a horror movie and you go, "Oh my god, it was all there in front of me." But the fun thing about like Scream 2 is even when you're like, "Well, they introduced a new character, I could have seen this coming," but she isn't
Mm-hmm.
superfluous.
Yeah.
And in lesser people's hands, and a lesser writer's hands, and lesser director's hands, if she just sort of been around, you probably would have caught it more.
Mm.
But what's great is before you find out the reveal, she still has a purpose to the story, to the mechanics of telling a story, which
Mm-hmm.
is Gail in the first movie is a thorn in Sydney's side.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney's trying to get to school and trying to get a fucking interview. We're trying to have a party and you're showing up and trying to exploit me. So to have Gail now have a fucking person showing up in her life and asking her fucking questions and trying to like one up her, or like, oh, did you
Right.
hear this just happened? Like,
Of course, yeah.
that's already just a smart move, but it's also a smart move to include her and have her have a purpose. So I'm not ever doubting why she's here.
Sure.
The fact that this movie came out a year after the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they managed to write it, shoot it, and get it out by the following like Christmas, it's a tighter script than it has any right to be, for the most part. When you this doesn't feel slapped together, because that first movie, as it's deconstructing the idea of like what a horror movie is, or at least having some fun with the idea, because it doesn't fully deconstruct. The fact that they're able to do that again with the idea of sequels and to have fun with the rules of sequels, and allowing themselves to make a sequel-y sequel, but also getting to do their Scream thing, which justifies some of the sequeliness based on the killer's MO and based on the franchise's kind of intentions with what a Scream movie is. I think that not only does it succeed, but I would also argue that like, while this isn't a better sequel than the first movie, or even one of the best sequels ever made, as far as like, you know, I think Toy Story 2 is better than Toy Story 1. I think Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1. But like, Scream 2 is a really good sequel. It may not be like as good of a movie as Scream, but as far as being a sequel, like if you, it is such a good approach to making a solid sequel in every sense of what defines a sequel.
I agree. The only things that like kind of still kind of like pull at me, like I watching it this time around, I was like, yeah, still bugs me, is that after Sydney escapes, after Hallie, her friend gets killed at a distance. Also, that's one of the most effective things that happens with Score and with Situation when Sydney's just going out the car window. Oh my God, I'm just kind of like,
so
oh, I still clench.
Yeah.
I still clench. And I even like that sorry, I'm backtracking, but I even like the fact that they're arguing 2 points of view that I agree with both of them. The fact that Hallie's saying, no, dumb people go back. We're smart people, so smart people run. And she says, I'm
Sydney
not
has
running
every right
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
To say, I'm
after
done running. And I love that. But the thing is, like, then after Hallie gets, abducted and killed and all that, I say it like that, just because we don't get to know Hallie as well as we knew Tatum. Kind of upset about that. But then
but
she
Hallie has a
runs.
good head on her shoulders for the most part. I like Hallie a lot.
She does. Yeah, I like Hallie. She's just as protective of Sydney, and I like that. But we don't get to see as much interaction as we did with her and Tatum. And I feel like if we did, because I remembered her name this time because I was like looking for it, and then I heard her call her Hallie. I'm like, that's what your name is. Okay, I just remember you being her dorm mate. But when she runs away from it, all of a sudden she's on. This is the only thing where I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, you're just trying to get to the climax now. She's on an empty campus. Totally nobody on campus.
And the killer
She
plays the
runs
music.
by the theater and hears things happening inside. Just happens to be where she needs to be to hear what she needs to hear to be there for the final set piece. Goes inside alone. Doesn't think, oh shit, nobody's here. Maybe campus is closed. Shit's going on in there. I understand if she wants it all to be over, she might go in. But wouldn't you just kind of like look for a phone to kind of call the police to know they're on the way?
Okay.
While you go in and let the thing play out.
You make a good point when it comes to like the safety or lack of it by going in alone and not calling the police. Mm-hmm. However, I never really questioned it, only because like I saw Sydney go to that point where like she is now the Lyndall Hamilton of the story. Like she is she's not the victim, because she spends a lot of time. She's not the angsty, mopey, woe is me victim anymore. She is now rising above it.
She's Cassandra.
Which is a nice allegory, and I thought that was a nice inclusion. I don't totally buy the scene where she's with David Warner and the whole "I'm a fighter" thing.
That when I was texting.
In fact, now that scene kind of pisses me off, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Go ahead.
No, I was texting with my sister, and it's probably the same thing. She was just kind of like, I still don't buy that any director would ask a girl who's been victimized that many times to go on with the show anyway, even if he had no understudy. Wouldn't you just postpone the damn show?
Well, first of all, even before that point, when she mentions to like Dewey, like, oh, well, I'm, like, first of all, she says she's majoring in theater, right? She's an acting major.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, and the show opens in 2 days. Nothing about what's happening on her first day, like getting up in the morning and we found out she doesn't even go to class because of what happens. But like, fuck, your show's opening in 2 days. Like you and I, we've spent a little bit of time acting and in theater and how much, I mean, I know you're going to school and you have other things to do, but I don't believe that her show's opening in 2 days.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely
I don't believe what
true.
she's doing to conduct herself and what her life is that of an actor whose show is open.
Going to sorority parties and whatnot, even if her boyfriend is a fraternity brother and all of that.
And when they have that rehearsal, by the time we get to that scene, fucking Principal the Fonz knows, like, hey kids, like, go the fuck home, class is canceled, curfew's in effect. This girl, like, not only has she been through so much, but there are people getting murdered on campus.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, come on, use this for your character. Fuck you. You're worse. This is the kind of time where you would cancel and postpone your show. That
said, I have been in colleges where there are directors who have God complexes, David Warner doesn't. That the only problem is David Warner doesn't play it like an act. He's not being a prick about it. He's just kind of. I almost wish he would be more prick-ish in his performance, because it would make more sense that a prick would make the decisions he makes, even though he's in very little.
However, the point of that scene is her Cassandra journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can't be the prick, because that's not what the scene needs. So it's a little
you get the moment though that I love. It's on par with in the first movie, the close-up of her face after she clocks Gail, and even when she's on the first phone call, thinks it's Randy, and he says, I'm not Randy, and she's doing her nose, and he just says, listen, if you hang up on me, you're gonna die just like your mother. And it gets a tight close-up of her face, and it's Sydney, like, you crossed a line, motherfucker. Get that moment when he tells her to say, I'm a fighter. She says it, 2 times, and he doesn't believe her.
Yeah, and then the third one.
And then she says it, and I'm like, there's Sydney. So, I don't know. I mean, a little column A, a little column B. It's not a perfect movie, but I enjoy it.
I don't need, to me, because Scream 1 shouldn't be about this, but to me, this movie is Sydney and then picking up by the bootstraps, and now it's like, fucking Sydney. That's why I like this movie so goddamn much. 2 little things I'll mention. Very little. Actually, well, one's little, one's not. It makes me laugh though. I think I mentioned this in one of the other videos, but it makes me laugh the way the theater in this fucking it's time to cue the music, and they have a reel-to-reel, and some student flips the switch on the reel-to-reel audio. We had fucking digital music in 1997.
Yes.
In my high school, we had digital
Yeah.
music. Jesus, fucking reel-to-reel. All the language of cinema, and then yeah, so the ropes that cut, and you cut them and all these different things fall, and I never understood when the rocks fall on Mrs. Loomis
They are
because
foam.
they're fucking fake.
Like those two like bounce right off of you. That's an insurance. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen if they're real.
Very irresponsible
They would
theater.
never be real. I don't care how much money you put behind your drama.
Also, all your lighting rigs
Yeah.
are secured by a secondary safety chain, so that if the rope ever breaks, they don't fall. But whatever. The fact that, this is my nitpick, is the fact that if I'm the stage, and here's a beam of light,
Yeah.
like the poles go lengthwise.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when she cuts one, it swings like on the wrong axis. Like it wouldn't, you know what I mean? It would fall this way. I don't know who designed their theater where they swing down. I don't know. But what kills me more than any of this bullshit nitpicking that I'm doing is that when she's cutting the ropes, and I love when and she's looking through the door and she kind of does like her fucking Nicholson, like I fucking love that, because that's what like at that point now I've earned it. She's like while she's doing that, at one point she goes up to again, they wouldn't have this in 1997 because we're not in the 1930s. They have a giant sheet of metal for the thunder sound effect.
Oh yeah.
I love that. It's one thing for them when they're rehearsing to use the thunder, but when she is doing all this shit to fuck up the stage to hurt Mrs. Loomis, she just grabs it and shakes it for some reason.
I know.
And I don't know why Sydney grabbed the thunder metal and shook it, because it doesn't do any. I don't understand.
Oh, you know what? I'll do the work for you, Giancarlo.
Please.
Because she knows Mrs. Loomis. She knows that Mrs. Loomis has a phobia of storms, of thunder in particular. So
because Billy was scared of thunder, and this will make her feel bad about abandoning Billy.
No, I mean, there are little things. There's a bunch of little things that I am of two minds about. Like, I actually really love the way Jerry O'Connell plays it in this. I remember first experiences with Jerry O'Connell early in his career, like Stand By Me, and he was on a series that actually Ned Campbell guest starred on that used to be on Channel 5 when I was, I think I was like maybe 4th and 5th grade. And it was called My Secret Identity, and he played like a boy who was kind of like a secret superhero. And I loved all of the Secret Identity bullshit that was going on in the 80s and 90s. So I was there for it. I watched all the time. So I liked him. He was that kid to me. Then he got older, and I started to kind of lose an appetite for him. And then I think the movie that won me back really, like where I'm like, oh, good, I'm on board for what you're doing here, was the Piranha reboot.
I knew you were going to say that.
Of course.
Because he plays the girl, essentially the Girls Gone Wild guy, and he plays him really well.
And he does it perfectly. But Scream, and I tended to just kind of like, because he's not my favorite character, and he doesn't have any of my favorite scenes in Scream 2. That said, he stood out to me this time because I was just like, well, okay, I love that the way it's written, love that he's giving a lot of generic boyfriend platitudes to Sydney, like cupping her face and telling her like, I just don't want to see you get hurt and everything. And it's not entirely, because he's still a red herring too. Mm-hmm. It's not entirely like, oh, what a great guy. It's kind of like, well, you could just be pretending. She went through this with another boyfriend before. We don't know what franchise we're in yet. This could be the Sydney dates serial killers franchise. So he could easily be putting on a show. And it's another thing, like after his arm gets cut and he's being questioned in the hospital, and he's just like, it's just a good thing that you got in before he got away. Or after, or before he, what does he say? Oh, it's like, it's just a shame you got there too late, right after he disappeared. And he's got this weird energy about him where you're just like, I don't know what to make of you. And I think it works perfectly for the movie. Thing is, I like the fact that again, Sydney is also made to choose when, or not even made to choose, but made to kind of like question. There's two guys screaming at her and she doesn't know who to believe, just like with Stu and with Randy in the first movie outside the house at the climax. This time it's Ola Fantastic and Jerry O'Connell.
They trained us to think that there's two. And in fact, that's one of the little beats that I really actually like Ola Fantastic for playing, is when Jerry O'Connell's like saying, no, no, no. And he goes, that's okay. We got her. Like that's that's the level that I wanted Ola Fantastic to play at. But to keep lying to her and put him in that corner, like, no, stop lying. It's okay, we got her now. Like, oh, it's a perfect delivery compared to later in the scene.
I do have to say though,
it's gonna
Jerry O'Connell,
rock. Yeah.
The reason why I'm of two minds about it is just because here I thought he was so exquisitely written and executed as a character, as a red herring, and then to ultimately, like, I'm right there with Sydney as she's feeling the loss and apologizing in his pathetic way. I mean, like, how do you apologize? Like, I'm sorry you're dying. I'm sorry. But he really rubs it in though.
He rubs the salt on the wound, like, and he was gonna be a doctor.
No, I mean Jerry O'Connell as he's dying.
Oh yeah.
Never would have hurt you. Never. I mean, he could have, at that point, I'm just kind of like, he could have gone on like, I was going to be a doctor.
Yeah. Which would have been more
and it
dickish.
Would have been just as tonally on par with what he was already doing. I liked the fact that he got to, that Ella Fantastic got to echo it, though, as a character. So that's,
I would like to say that I do, his performance overshadows the text of his motivations, though.
Mm-hmm.
I do quite like on paper what Mickey's intentions are. It's the kind of thing that a rational person wouldn't come up with, but a fucking psychopath would absolutely go, well, yeah, this is a good idea. This is what I'm going to do. I mean, it's one thing to watch, to study some scary movies as homework, to understand as an uninformed teenager how to try to do this. But I actually found it at the time a very disturbing idea to see what I considered someone in college, someone older, someone more rational as an adult, who clearly has watched too many goddamn horror movies and has snapped to the point where, like, no, I'm going to do this. And not only is he going to do this, but then take the extra step to be like, not only can I get caught, no, I will get caught because I'm also rational enough to know that I can get caught and go to trial and I'm going to try to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
There is something extra crazy about him. And there has always been the debate, at least as far as when I was a kid in the fucking early 90s with Mortal Kombat and like violence in video games, and just like you go all the way through after that and post Columbine with, you know, fucking Marilyn Manson and violence in movies. And so to have someone lean into that and even film their kill, like, I found the idea of him far more disturbing than the performance we got.
Yeah.
But who he is on paper really got under my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember shortly after this came out, Halloween H2O came out. And I remember reading a story about someone who either murdered someone. It was a teenager who either murdered someone or attempted to murder someone. And they were fucking crazy. They said, I saw Halloween H2O and I wanted to do it. And I remember I'm like, oh, the first thing I thought when I read that was, oh, like, okay, so like Mickey, but real.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as, again, if we're playing with the idea of movies and cinema and their existence and their effect on things, I think this was the next, not logical step, but it was a separate step as far as how do we include that in this movie, especially with this killer. And I thought, deranged film student, like, this all fits what Scream is.
It's almost too perfect because when they're going down, when Randy and Dewey are going down the roster of all the suspects, because this is how we do it now, this is how we roll. And when they come to him, and the way Randy described it, I didn't write down the line, but just like the creepy for Tarantino, you know, film student or whatever. But if he's a suspect, so am I. And they immediately gets dismissed. And I have no problem just flicking it off our shoulder because we don't want to suspect Randy. But
I love
the fact that he's too perfect a candidate. Like, it's so right that
almost like the creepy boyfriend in the last movie.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love that scene. First, because when prior to recently, where as an older man, to me this movie is now all just Sydney and Gale. But when I was a kid, I thought Dewey was hilarious, and I love Randy because I like movies and Randy liked movies. So to have just the two of them fucking rapping together and going over like that scene still to me is just it's joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way Dewey processes it, because David Arquette's actually quite good in these movies.
Yes, he
Great.
is.
When he's like, but I'm a suspect. No, if he's a suspect, then I'm a suspect. So let's move on. Well, let's not move on. Maybe you are a suspect. Well, if I'm a suspect, then you're a suspect. And he goes, okay.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Let's move on.
Nailed the eyes. Yeah. Oh my God, that was creepy.
I mean, no, but like, I've seen this movie a lot.
Yes.
He plays that so perfectly. It's funny, but it's organic to him. And
yeah.
And that's he's such a sort of a goofball, but like a lovable goofball, but like he's a little, he plays it all perfectly. I don't really have much to say other than like he plays it perfectly. And in that weird sort of way, there are times where I see what Gale would see in him.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, again, playing that elevated reality, and also because he can transpose his key the way the movie does. That's why he's also kind of perfect for the franchise, because he can when the movie needs to be funny, he's funny, and when the movie needs for him to break some really, really sad news to Sydney, and soften the blow or just give it to her straight or whatever, like he is the most. I feel like he's even more paternal to Sydney than her father is. I feel more comforted when she gets to confide in Dewey than I do when she confides in her father. Her father's fine, but he's not there. We don't get to see her interact with him anywhere near as much as we get to see her throughout these movies interact with Dewey. And Dewey's always kind of like a safe place. They even there's that weird, it's odd to think of it this way. I never articulated this to myself, but kind of like that weird daddy-daughter thing where it's like if mom is having a rough day and the daughter doesn't see eye to eye with her, dad can connect with her and dad can just kind of like be like, yeah, mom's, I mean, you know how your mother is. It's the same kind of a dynamic, just kind of like, well, you know Gale. I mean, she's like, yeah, seems like things never change. And they have this weird safety. There's this incredible sanctuary that I feel with the two of them. They can say anything and know it's okay, and they also know he knows giving her this information is only going to make her want to pursue the end of this, and he worries about her, but he also doesn't do anything to really stop her. He just backs her up. So that was a weird discovery I just made now, so thanks for being a witness to it, everybody. John Carlos.
The last two things I'll say, because we've talked about this movie a lot more than I expected, but that's fine. But the music, Marco, I think it's Marco Beltrami, who I like the music in Scream 1 a lot, a lot. But I don't want to say Scream 2 is better, but like there's so many beats that every time I go, yes, this is fucking perfect. And it's not, and his use of like the choir for when things are like eerie or sad. There's so many different approaches and different themes, the Dewey theme and the guitar, and just like the that like I instantly like melt when I hear it. But I mean, after they get busted, like they're when they go to like the screening room, and Gale runs down the hall, it's just like a series of strings that she's like reaching for each door, and I'm like, this is like, I feel more fear, I feel more suspense, I feel more ache. It is so well produced. It is like when you make a sequel and then you go a little bit bigger with the soundtrack, this is how it should be done, where it's still the themes that we know, but like it supports the story. And I mean, he did all four, and I think it gets a bit pantomimey by the time the third one, but like it clicks for me in so many fucking scenes in the second movie. And then lastly, just one little bit is it makes me chuckle so much every time when we get to the frat party. By the way, one little thing about the frat party, I love that she gets the phone call. The phone rings, and it's not even her fucking house, but there's that thing with Sydney's like, the phone's ringing. And everyone went outside to go see what's going on. But I love that she looks out to the door and her boyfriend's still out there. Like it feels like things are safe.
Mm-hmm.
He's there, door's open. I'm gonna answer the phone. And then the fact that like when turns around and the door's closed, he's like right here, which is like the first time we actually hear the killer in the room. Which is another thing I really like is that admission here. I think you and I don't know how much you knew about me being a Scream fan to this degree when we were friends back then. Not only did I have like like the posters in my room, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But and I had a Scream costume because yay fun. But when you see the fucking voice changer in the movie, it's a little like white kind of cream colored box and it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
They made that as like a voice changer thing, and I remember seeing it when you used to like log on to the internet and your dial up, and you would. And I remember I really wanted it. My parents got it for me, and even though it looked like 90% like the one in the movie, it wasn't the one in the movie, but whatever. But I remember it's just like a distortion thing. And again, it's the movie trailer voice guy who's doing the voice. But that was the first one when Mickey takes off the mask, when you realize that like, and you can do this in real life with that same voice changer and the mask, is you can jam it into that prolonged chin. You can jam it right in there and it hovers right in front of the fucking mouth.
Oh, wow.
So when Mickey takes off the mask and pulls it out from the chin, I'm like, that's totally fucking doable. And that explains, like, you never see him holding a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's because it's stuck in there, and I just always appreciated that. Anyway, that frat party, it's a sorority party. One of the little things is when they introduce the scene, it's a throwaway dialogue, but I love me some funny throwaway exit or intro dialogue. And when Portia de Rossi and Rebecca Gayheart are like,
yeah.
So people think sororities are all about blowjobs, but we're just promoting like safe condom sex. But harmonica style's okay, right? Oh yeah, totally. Harmonica style. That movie introduced harmonica style into my vocabulary, and I will always love this movie. You can poo-poo Scream 2 all you want, but harmonica style's okay, right?
It changed your life.
It did.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Speaking of Jesus Christ, let's talk about Scream 3.